Over to you, Steve, for your final case study.
All right. Thank you, Henry. This is a presentation about my Prod MBA case study. I dubbed it Connective Co. You will see why, hopefully. I will dive in. So we went through a wonderful process in order to really dive into the problem area, the problem space, think about whether that was the right offer, start to think about how we might approach solutions and the strategy involved. And then ultimately I got to a point where we were ready for an MVP, but I didn't take that step for a few reasons, which I'll cover towards the end. So we're going to cover that process in this presentation. Number one, what problem are we solving? So as a parent myself, and as someone who has talked to other parents, there's a sense of community which needs to be driven to really help support that family in times of need or just for companionship. And it felt like an acute problem that I really wanted to dig into. This started out as trying to find and build community, contribute to community. But as you'll see through the iterative process, the problem statement here actually got refined through iteration itself. So I ended up with parents with young children want to find a supportive community and don't know where to start. So it was an acute problem. Objective one, dig into that, find out that it was in fact a real acute problem. This in itself was an interesting process. So I kind of went wide with tracking down people to talk to. I hit up Slack networks. I highly recommend the Prod MBA one for that. There's some great people on there. LinkedIn, the work Slack network, and then leveraged friends that already had WhatsApp groups organized. What I found was that it's that word of mouth worked the best. People who know people who are parents who are willing to talk to yielded the highest level of interaction in terms of discovery calls. LinkedIn didn't work. The parenting network in my workplace didn't actually work, which was really interesting. Maybe it's the approach I took there, which could be refined. It was the friends and friends of friends that really helped me dig into this. I did have the discovery calls and I talked to a bunch of really interesting people in different situations around needing support and finding support. The 10% here of those contacted booked a call is a testament to the fact that just hitting up networks with a little snippet, which may come across or may not come across as personal enough in this situation, didn't work in terms of getting 10%. It was much lower than that. I think the net went out to, it was like maybe 60, 70 people, and I did manage to get 5 with 1 or 2 pending. So for me, it was just under 10%. So that was a good learning in itself. I chatted to people. I dug into where they're at with their kids. There were some young kids, so daycares were involved. There was a single parent. There were people with kids in schools. Ultimately, parents do struggle to find support, especially if they move to a new area because of kids where they feel it's a safer area. Like step one is trying to find that support structure. Where daycares and schools do not provide support outside of regular school hours, again, that struggle really is amplified. Where schools do provide that support, then suddenly things come to life for parents. And that was a key insight in terms of building out the value proposition for a service that might otherwise replicate that model outside of a school system. The other insight that I found, which is very interesting, it was parents want to find other parents that are in similar situations in terms of not just the kids' ages, which is key because you can trade stories and information in terms of activities and schooling and everything else, but that share the same values as them. And that was the really kind of interesting insight. where their parenting style, the way that they approach problems, all of that comes into building a network. So they feel safe, they've got a trusted environment that they can really kind of, I forgot what the word was, but like they have shared pain, and then actually sharing that helps them in terms of a support model. So all of that was coming together in terms of building a product, building a vision for the product. It was then down to the minimum viable offer that we wanted to iterate on to really try and capture interest and identify whether we have a true understanding of the groups, what the group needs. So I landed on we help parents to find a supportive community by organizing local events centered around you and your children's needs. This was put up on a website, and there's a screenshot next, with the idea of getting, like, it was actually key results. It should have been greater than 5%, but what I ended up was getting around 5%, and hence the tilde there. Outreach to sign-up conversion. And again, there was a value proposition page with an opportunity to sign up to learn more. That was the conversion event. Differentiation with Blue Ocean strategy. Again, I'll dig into that in a moment. And then to build out a product story canvas and product vision. So those getting to have those resonate with people, finding the gap is definitely the objective here. So minimum viable offer. There's a screenshot there. You can see a parent and a child. It was a landing page. At the landing page, there's an input field where you can add your email. You can join the waitlist to find out more. And then there was a subsequent step after that or optional step to fill out a survey to give even more information. So the numbers there were pretty good. I was surprised that the views of the landing page were in the hundreds, based on where I was posting. And then the conversion was around 5%, as I said, kind of bubbling around that line, just below, just above. And I actually got 3 survey results as well, 3 survey responses, which is interesting, which helped me iterate. When I chatted to people about the minimum viable offer, there was still some confusion around what the events were, what children's needs were, what parents get out of it in terms of, do I just drop kids off? Is someone looking after them? So I know that there was further iteration to go there. And I did try and work through a few different alternatives, including the word relax, which did not resonate with people, which is interesting because people relax in different ways. And for some, that meant getting away from things, not just putting the kids into some activity and then chatting to other parents. So I came out of this, I was close, but I don't think I was close enough to truly hitting the audience's need in a minimum viable offer, but I was close. So there's definitely something there. From the Blue Oceans canvas, there was a gap in the market, and that really was centered around the parents. Actually, there was a lot of activities centered around the kids, which was great, but there was no network building. It was largely down to parents to build their own network. And when I look at daycares, for example, people struggle to do that. So again, taking that forwards, that was going to be kind of the linchpin of the service to really facilitate the support network growth for parents, using the children and children's relationships as the starting point. So the validated product vision, find your community of local parents, was where I ended up in terms of really bringing parents to the fore for this. Objective number 3 around the strategy. So I was building out the strategy to take forwards into a prototype through these key results here, and I'll dig into them rather than read them out here. So the strategic roadmap. There were 3 key moments that would result in a growing community network of parents, which would hopefully trigger a virtuous cycle and a network effect or localized network effect for everyone using the service. Those were around coming into getting the MVO right, for one, coming into the service, being able to search locally, find activities that resonated, find groups that were local, that were relevant to me in terms of age, etc. And then start to think about the next steps. Ultimately, it's engaging with content, so encouraging people to post, to add activities, to add ideas, etc. And then for parents to interact with parents, reach out, connect, and then build a network that way, all while maintaining privacy and security. So that was another key aspect. The initial prototype to help support that, where I wanted to go with this one was really to get as live as possible, to create a forum in a very isolated case, to see that the model of centering it around a learning institution, having parents post on there, having parents interact with posts, and then having parents connect to each other to build that network, for me required the persistence of the information of those parents to see that they're interacting, etc., over and above thinking about usability and the feasibility side of things. So it's really, does that model give people the value they need to the point where they will continue to invest time in it? I didn't unfortunately get to the point of building this through time constraints, but that was for me the next key step, and I was going to center that around the daycare that my children are at, because I know that parents struggle to do this. So it would have been a good opportunity for validation and feedback to then take the next step. The lean canvas side, obviously sustainable business in mind. Given the money that needs to be put into this, how can I generate revenue? There were some good approaches around subscriptions, around bringing businesses in, around allowing the platform to field paid events. So where people might otherwise post on a piece of paper in a community center or in a newsletter, to give people an avenue to build a business through this platform was one approach. And then there's a lot of existing alternatives that leverage social media, etc. But with the focus on children and then parents and parents networking over and above something that tries to cover all bases, I felt there was a strong value proposition around that local community network of parents that would really help this provide more value. The product team topology, how might we build this? What do we need to do to support this? As I dived into this, it really became apparent that it was a complex situation, but finding a point to start would have been the key here. But ultimately, we've got a few different user groups that really need attention from, like, dedicated attention from teams, obviously parents, the people that coordinate activities, and then hopefully give them a platform to build business. There's the learning institutions, the businesses themselves, where they may be thinking about doing this. This would give them an opportunity to actually do it, and it being based on the models that successful schools already leverage, hopefully give them the onus to try it. And then there's the group coordinator, and what this means is someone who's supervising and administering the groups that form on the platform. So, for example, local groups, and it could be as an area of a city itself. There does need to be some curating of content, for example. And then underneath that, lots of data, the platform systems, and then anything that relates to payment, obviously, we need to take very seriously. Objective number 4 would have been the validation of the prototype and then the iteration beyond that. This slide represents the intention of where things would have gone. So building out that prototype, testing that prototype, and there's a great product market fit tool that the Prod MBA course provides. So if you get an opportunity, dig into that. and then ultimately onboarding other beta users and really getting that kind of sense of iteration going to increase the product market fit score. So again, this is where I wanted to go, but actually didn't due to time constraints. The principles that I kind of leaned on or generated as a part of this work, defining the problem is often said, but I found a new appreciation for what that meant through the course. That started out with a problem statement. It started with really digging into a niche and making that very specific. It was discovery, refining the problem, and it became very obvious where it wasn't quite capturing the acute problem itself. And the discovery calls were even more important to refine that and to really think about what it was I was trying to solve and for whom. I can't underline enough the iterative process and the time investment and the value that it brought as a result of doing this. That led to validation of that core problem through the MVO, through again talking with people and using tools such as software in terms of getting a landing page up, again to dig into that problem to find out if you're thinking about it in the right way, your statement is right. And again, going back to discovery, if something seems amiss, and it will jump out to you where there's a mismatch there. And again, without coding, it's much cheaper to iterate at this point. And again, as all of that.
Sorry, I'm just going to pause you there. I'll give you 20 seconds or so to wrap up, just to make sure we've got time for feedback.
Totally. That leads into the vision and the strategy. Again, because of that pre-work with problems and discovery, it will really help iterate on that. And then ultimately build a narrative through the product. That storytelling will really make things resonate for people over and above facts.
Awesome. Good. Excellent. So what I'm going to do is just go through, if you go back to the first slide and just try and follow along as I go through each point. Just do some quick feedback on the case study itself, and then we'll slow down and sort of talk about long-term things, observations from the 8 weeks. So I think with the problem, context was very clear. I think it was great that you mentioned the iterative process already at that stage, because what are you doing? You're just showing the value of product discovery. Same with, when we do the interviews and show how our thinking evolved, it's showing like, hey, we actually ended up with a much better idea because we took this time to iterate and evolve. The first objective I thought was good. There was a nice story about what was the objective, and then how that flowed into the key results. There was a clear sort of, I could follow the connect the dots there, and then you covered some learnings, which is always interesting and like really engaging, I think, for the listener. Once, I'm going to really push you with feedback because I think you're someone that should be pushing for senior leadership. You mentioned, for example, like, okay, we didn't crack the acquisition channel. I would like to see someone senior address what the risks are of not having that done and how we might counteract it. So it could be, okay, we haven't found an acquisition channel, but, if we think this is a good opportunity, we can invest, have someone dedicated to that or a team dedicated to that, for example. So just make it clear that you're aware that that's a risk, for example. On the discovery highlights, again, these were good. They were clear. They were clear. The highlights there lacked a little bit of storytelling. So it's really powerful, particularly with discovery, to go, here are the key themes. For example, I spoke to John and Anna, parents, good friends of ours, and they mentioned these problems. Just personifies it so that it's memorable and concrete for the listener. And I thought tone was a little bit flat on the discovery. Again, I'm really going to push you with the feedback on this. You said, for example, there was a super interesting insight. You said it in a very flat voice. So it makes you go like, is it that interesting? Because if Steve's not interested by this, then the listener's not going to be. So do try and bake that in. I'll talk about that a little bit later though. On the second objective, clear about what it is and why. Importantly, we want that logic So as we've gotten this visual, that's why I've added it. It's like it's showing that these are sequences, right? These are levels that we are completing, for example. So tying those things together, you did well there. Blue Ocean was I liked your justification of your positioning. So when you talking about like how you applied the Blue Ocean was excellent. And it just generally good as well. Shows strategic thinking. You sort of question this convention, right? It's like, why aren't we thinking about the parents' relationships? Flip that a little bit. I thought that was great. Really shows good strategic thinking. But just simple things, Blue Ocean, just being clear, not in this context, but hey, if you're introducing this at work, straight away, what is it and why do we use it? Essentially, helping us to identify a gap in the market. So any new framework, just to be really clear, simple sentence, what is it and why are you telling them about it? On the objective 3, there was no bridge. So what do I mean by that? You sort of paused and then went, next slide, objective 3, strategy. Whereas, for example, Monique did hers earlier, and a great way to, what I call bridging, is connecting the objectives together. So she went, right, so at this stage, we know who our market is, we know what the problem is, we know what our strategy is going to be. Sorry, we know what the opportunity is. Now we needed to set, some long-term foundations. Awesome. So single sentence like that, really powerful, just shows, oh, this is why you're telling me all this stuff now about strategic planning, lean canvas, etc. Prototype, good. Yeah, showed real first principles thinking in terms of what you focused on, right? Value, risk, excellent. Lean canvas, good explanation. And I love that you talked about the unique value proposition and why you feel it would work. That's going to be, me as a business person, if I'm a stakeholder, I want to see you've got the business hat on. So, seeing strategy. However, didn't mention revenue, cost, or unfair advantage would be the other sort of 3 business topics that I'd look at. Again, in today's context, it doesn't matter. But if you're going to be presenting ideas to stakeholders, for you to, again, show that you've got business acumen, product leader, then make sure you dive into those a little bit more. But again, today's a different context. Team topology was good. Yeah, clear. Just be careful to break down, if you're going to show that to, let's say, stakeholders, they're like, oh my God, there's like 20 teams on there. Do break it down by stages when you present this kind of thing. So it's like, at the beginning, we're still really focused, 1 team. 2 years, we might grow this out to 3-4 teams, for example. But again, today's context, a little bit different. So just generally sort of wrapping up with the case study, it was good, very solid presentation. But I think, again, to really push you, we'll talk about that shortly. Yeah. It's going from, okay, I sort of get what you're saying, Stu, to, oh, this is really exciting. I'm inspired, right, to go and pursue this opportunity, or inspired to give you the money for you to build a team around this, for example. That feels like the next stage for you, which ties into zooming out a little bit, long term. I think my observation is you've got a very good strategic and analytical brain. And I think that came across not, today, it came across in the workshops, it came across in your comments on people's assignments. So I think you sort of tick that product strategy box in my view. Obviously, we can always improve, but you've got a really good foundation there. The thing to improve upon, I think, is leadership. And I think I don't know what you're like as a leader in your company, but there's some things that I'm observing around storytelling specifically. I think one thing to improve upon. Second thing, presentation skills. So that body language and tone. And that, by the way, is really not natural for like Brits. Right? I don't naturally speak like this. I'm generally quite introverted, but it's just something that comes with a lot of practice, like doing loads of presentations, loads of workshops, etc. So why do we have to do that? Particularly important in a remote world, because we're just at a screen all day, right? You don't have this sort of in-person interaction. So, have to try and really sort of ramp up body language, tone, these kind of things. So I think, 3 things to focus on. So first is storytelling. I think that means going back to much of what we covered, but also, reading around that topic, YouTube videos, that kind of thing. Second, presentation skills. And there's some really nice, there's some YouTube channels that I can send you if you're interested as well on that. Definitely. So let me know and I'll send that through. And I think third thing is just do what you're already doing. You're getting repetitions around workshops. You're going to be introducing these concepts, right? Coaching, awesome. Giving, you were excellent at giving feedback to other people. So do that not just to your team, but other people as well. So, you're getting these repetitions. I think it's just adding these sort of slightly new skills of storytelling and presentation skills, let's say. But yeah, otherwise, I think you're in a really good position. I think if you unlock that, then you'll quite quickly, start moving to the next level as a leader. I mean, do you think that's fair? Any thoughts from your side? Any next steps you want to take?
Totally fair. I am a bit like in terms of day-to-day life, dry humor, flat tone.
Yeah,
I
it's a British
leverage
thing. I mean,
that.
we also just
Yeah,
undersell ourselves. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So I think taking that next step, you're completely right. I need to bring this to life. I think the narrative is definitely key. I should add in more examples, and I've had feedback from presentations that when I do give examples, especially where it's related to my own experience, it does bring things to life and it does become more memorable. So I need to know to give examples, and this
Yeah,
was
yeah. Yeah,
the
and
perfect kind of presentation to do that, to be honest.
it's a simple thing. For example, like you are a parent, and you never mention that. You never mentioned like that's something immediately people are going to relate to. Look,
Mhm.
advice that I get, I sometimes forget to do it. I try to follow the principle. Every point you're going to make, add a story with it. Can be,
Yeah.
that concrete example again. John and Anna struggle with this problem, and here's what they mentioned. Right. So, or
Yeah.
if you have a data point, 20% of people are dropping off. For example, we spoke to Stu, and he said he was just struggling with dot dot dot. If
Hmm.
you try to do that, then you'll immediately sort of improve your game there.
Totally. I think the other one thing which I did, which you gave good feedback on, was I made assumptions about the audience. So I know that you know this stuff. I know that
Mhm.
perhaps a lot of people who might watch this have gone through the same process and know the tools. But I made the assumption that people knew exactly what I was talking about all the way through. That took the edge off the presentation unwittingly. So if anyone does listen to this, don't make assumptions about your audience. Introduce the
Well,
tool,
spot on. Because the
introduce the aim.
MBO, people got no
Yeah.
idea. Blue Ocean, 90%, no idea. Or they've got a wrong pro. Even if you said MVP, people have a very wrong idea of what you're actually referring to there, for example.
Mm.
So, yeah, just
Totally.
I would say simple terms. Use simple terms you'd explain to like your maybe not your kids because they're only 0 and 2, but you talk to a 4 or 5 year old and they should more or less understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And it's just, even
Good.
if
I think
people do
that's the
want
next step.
to give that little intro is, I think, still good.
Exactly. And it's one liner again, okay. So next we did a blue ocean. That's helped us understand where there are gaps in the market and actually where it's very busy and what competitors are doing well. Simple as that.
Totally.
Really nice. Good. Well, look, I think next step, and it's a tough one because it's this very soft, fluffy topic, right? Storytelling, presentation skills. But I think this is one of the things that's better to do through video than books from personal experience. So what I'll do is send through, I've been needing to do this anyway. I'm going to send through a few resources, just fun things to be watching on these topics, and just keep reading around it. Run a little experiment. So next presentation you do go, okay, can I add a story to every single example I'm making? If it means you have to make fewer points, absolutely fine, completely fine to do that. Just make sure the points really hit home, and someone comes out really inspired, plus with really concrete 2 or 3 points they come out with. That's a really good outcome from a meeting presentation. Awesome. Well, look, Stu, what I'll do, I'll send those through at some point today. And yeah, as I said, look, again, I'm pushing you. It's a good presentation. You've got all the core ingredients, but next level is really going to be that leadership piece now. Yeah. Awesome. Well, look, again, it's been a pleasure having you on the cohort as well. Great to hear you're putting stuff into practice. And don't hesitate to reach out like any questions on anything Prod MBA, career related. Just drop me an email or message on Slack. And yeah, always happy to sort of hear how things are going.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Right, cheers to you. We'll stay in touch.
All right.
Bye bye.
Take care.